Hello everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland reviewer, and I'm here to review Season 3 of the revival of Animaniacs, and unfortunately, the last season. And this show, I watched a lot as a kid. I've been really enjoying this rebirth and how they've been going about things. The animation feels updated and fresh. It doesn't feel as like tactile as like the hand drawn originally did, but like it has a new life and sheen to it, and I think it's still pretty true to it. And even in this season, this last season, they experiment with that in Warner Games, which is this particular episode where like they get stuck in a video game and then they turn 3D animated, and it's an interesting kind of shaking things up in terms of what they're showing. And I do feel like this revival in its third season is still hilarious. There's so many jokes that I laugh at this, and it's so relevant still. I remember watching the first season of this revival and being like, holy crap, they're going to some places. And it was refreshing. And, you know, I hadn't watched the original show since I was a kid, so I didn't have a frame of reference of like, was it this edgy when it first came out? And my hope would be that it was, and this is staying true to that, just in a modern context, especially in this time period. This has run from like 2020 to 2023, so that's a pretty interesting time period to be playing around with. And in this season, they do a lot of interesting things in terms of they're still balancing obviously the Warner siblings and their adventures, their misadventures, and their meta humor, like all the way leading up to like the final skit of this series of them realizing trying to wrap things up and trying to wrap things up in a funny way and being knowing about it. And I appreciate that meta perspective and the knowing of being like, we got you. We're bringing the laughs. I appreciate that they continue with like Pinky and the Brain. And just a side note, all these voice actors are still killing it, doing such a great job in these roles that made them famous. And the Pinky and the Brain segments are still fun and fresh and ridiculous in terms of all the different kinds of things they come up with. I do even appreciate some of the side stories. Like there's one particular one about like making a TV show and like staff writers and all of that, and that is so hilarious and also potentially a little awkward, because I really hope that in the present situation with the WAG, the WGA strike, that somebody doesn't pull that up and try to use that as leverage, seeing as it's probably not the kindest to writers on TV shows. But it's very interesting in how this series still commentates on the greater culture of entertainment. And it's funny. It comes up with silly and over-the-top situations for the Warner siblings and Pinky and the Brain and everything else going on in this series. It's funny. It's vibrant. It has a lot of energy. And as a 31-year-old, I still get a humongous kick out of this series, and it's hitting on many different levels. And it's sad to see that this wrapped up, but I do feel like they had some fun on the way out. And I think that's the most important thing. So definitely recommend this over on Hulu. But those are my thoughts on Animaniacs Season 3. Let me know what you think, and let's talk some TV. But thank you as always for tuning in and supporting your Wasteland reviewer.